My name is Jessie Ransom, and I'm the Teaching and Learning Product Specialist for Libris with a focus on North America. I work with all different types of schools, primarily regarding the way that the library supports teaching and learning. Obviously, affordable learning is something that continues to come up in these conversations, and I'm always very interested to hear more about what schools are doing and also the types of things that they're trying to do or struggling to do. I'm going to talk a bit about affordable learning in general, including some of the challenges that students and institutions are facing. And then we'll also look at Leganto, which is the Libris course resource list solution that many libraries are using as a way to partner with teaching and learning and promote more affordable course materials. So with that, let's go ahead and kick it off. This is where we're starting. Course materials are expensive. This is just to make sure that we're all on the same page here. Seriously, though, everybody already knows this, but what exactly does this mean for students? There's a number of different studies that have come out about the cost of course materials and how much students are paying and the types of decisions that students are making related to these costs. The numbers on this slide, or the facts on this slide, come from a 2018 study by Morning Consult for Cengage. So students who purchase all new textbooks pay an average of $1,200 per year. We know that students have options. There are used books, there are rentals, there are illegal downloads. Many students don't actually pay the $1,200 per year, and this varies quite a bit depending on the study that you look at, but I've seen numbers ranging really between $450 and $600 per year. This is still a significant amount for students, especially when you factor in that this cost is often unpredictable. It's usually due before their financial aid has come in, or maybe financial aid doesn't cover the cost of course materials. Students do pay a lot of money for school, and comparatively speaking, this is not a huge amount, but it's often the most difficult amount for students to cover. Additionally, 85% of students say that paying for course materials is financially stressful. 43% say they've skipped meals to pay for course materials. This is the one that always sort of catches me. This is a very high number to think about students who are making very, very difficult choices about how to spend their money, whether they're going to be purchasing food or purchasing those course materials. More than half of students don't purchase some of their course materials. Obviously, this affects their ability to learn the content of the course, and also affects the professor and their ability to effectively teach the content of the course. 31% of students registered for fewer classes because of the cost of materials, and 3 out of 10 say that they have decided not to take a class because of the material cost. These, of course, tie in with student retention and also the total cost of education. If a student has to attend school for an extra year, they come out with an additional year of tuition, but also that lost earned income from the year that they could have been working. So these are things that really do add up, even if you're looking at what sometimes seems like a fraction of the total cost of education. I know that these are numbers that many of you are probably already familiar with, or at least that this is a situation that many of you are familiar with, but I always think it's helpful to kind of think about what this actually means for the students who are experiencing this. There has been, as I said, quite a bit of press over the last 10 years or so, and also quite a bit of advocacy around the cost of course materials. This has reached the level of state and federal legislation, and it's definitely not going away anytime soon. We know that students are coming out of college with crippling debt right now, and that colleges and universities are suffering because of the high cost of education. Libris survey last year through Library Journal, where we spoke with 244 academic libraries in the US, and this was one of the questions that we asked them: how important is learn affordability at your institution? There is, as you can see here, some variation in terms of the type of institution, but this is definitely something that affects all types of institutions. Well over half of institutions have a significant focus on affordable learning. This is also something that affects faculty. Ithaca SNR did a study where they surveyed faculty directly. Those numbers come from 2018. 7 in 10 respondents indicated that reducing the cost that students pay for textbooks and other course materials is highly important. And this is broadly consistent across different institution types and also across different disciplines. Obviously, there is a little bit of variation, but these are still pretty significant numbers. Ithaca SNR also found that approximately 87% of faculty say that they often or occasionally give preference to assigning low or no cost textbooks, while 59% give textbooks or give preference to assigning course texts or materials that are available through the library. So this is definitely something that, faculty are also well aware of. Faculty also say, 60% of faculty say that they are interested in using open educational resources in their courses. This is significant. For many years, this has been one of the biggest challenges. It's difficult to move a course to OER, and it takes a lot of time and energy on the part of the professor. But as OER is successfully adopted in more and more courses, and as more and more resources exist, we find that faculty are becoming more willing to participate or to at least explore what they can do. And this is definitely something that the library can help with, and also something that the library is helping with. The Libris survey of academic libraries found that the library is often the one leading the charge on affordable learning on their campuses, with 35% of libraries saying that they are the primary leaders here. You can see from this graph that this is slightly higher than the provost's office. So, this is significant in terms of what libraries are doing. And we can see that in other places as well. These charts here come from the 2018-19 Connect OER report from Spark, where they surveyed 132 institutions in the US and Canada, and they found that 79% of institutions that have OER positions have them housed in the library. There is a very natural fit between OER and the libraries, and also between affordable learning and the library, and I think that this is really great to see. But also you can see from these numbers that there is still quite a bit more potential here. If you're watching this and you are like many institutions and just getting started, I don't want you to feel like you're behind. There has been, as I said, quite a bit of press about what schools are doing, and some of the big things that schools are doing. But in reality, schools and libraries exist all along the spectrum in terms of what they're currently doing to support affordable learning. This is an area where the library can have quite a big impact on the institution, regardless of where you are in the process. And that's what we'll talk about a little bit more today. So what can the library actually do? For starters, educate faculty on the challenges that students face, and it can help to frame this in terms of their needs. Students are dropping courses because they can't afford the textbook. Students aren't learning the content of the course because they're not purchasing the course materials, or they're taking fewer classes. They might not be taking your class because of these challenges that they're having in getting those course materials. And also, of course, think about the way that it affects the institution as a whole. So things like student retention and student success. So I really see that as the first step. Additionally, make sure that professors know what your library has, and remind them that resources from the library collection will be free for students to access. This is high quality academic content that you have been carefully curating for years and years and years. So you can work with your faculty to make sure that they know what those resources are. You can also work closely with them. I think this is a lot of times one of the challenges is building this collaboration between teaching and learning and the library and professors, where you understand what they're using in their courses or what they need to be using in their courses, and then you can suggest resources that meet their needs. This may be library resources, but it also may be OER, open access, or other freely available content. Now, this is something that the library is always doing anyway, is suggesting resources to meet specific needs. And so building those relationships with faculty really lets the library have a big impact here. And of course, make sure that students know what's expected of them, how to find these different resources, and how to access these different resources. So with that, I'm going to focus a bit on Leganto, which is the Ex Libris course resource list solution, and the ways in which it supports these different actions. So we'll be looking at all of these different things, less so the first one, that's on you, but I'll be talking about some of these other things that the library can do. and ways that some of our Leganto customers are doing that. I'm going to switch screens here, and I'm logged into Canvas. So the first one, the second one on that chart was making sure that faculty understand what's available through the library as part of their course development process. So I'm logged into Canvas right now as the instructor for several different courses. And as I'm thinking about developing my course, I can click on this resource list link. This will open up Leganto embedded into the learning management system. I'm using Canvas, but of course this works with other systems as well. This is now all of the resources that I want my students to read or watch or listen to or somehow engage with as part of this course that I'm developing. You can see that it's broken down into different sections here with a number of different types of resources within all of those sections. There is some variety here, which really does reflect what's needed in teaching and learning. I have a video that I pulled from the web. I have a book that's available from the library. Images, articles, book chapters, all different types of resources can make up the course resource list. For these resources that are coming from the library collection, we can access them directly from here with this View Online link, as well as any other resources, whether they're websites or OER. I have options to access all of those different resources. This is a course that I am still actively developing, so I want to show you some of the things that you can do as faculty. Backing up a step, the use of OER is definitely growing, and there are certainly a lot of great resources available, but at the same time, there's still a lot of courses where there isn't a direct one-to-one replacement, meaning that you were formerly using this one textbook and you replace it with this one OER textbook. That does happen in some courses, which is great, but it isn't yet available for many of the courses that are being taught. These tend to be, especially higher level courses. Higher level courses or more specific courses tend not to be as well represented by OER. But on the other hand, they do tend to be very well represented by the library collection because, again, you've been purchasing resources based on teaching and learning and research needs on your campus. So for all courses, Leganto provides a platform where faculty can easily use OER alongside the library resources and other freely available resources, and we can see that in my example here. They can curate content from many different places and organize it in a way that makes sense for their students. So looking at a couple of examples of that, the first is that I can search the library directly. So this will open up a search where I can search and see all of the different things that are available through my library. This is searching discovery, so it includes all of the articles and chapters and streaming media that's available through the library subscriptions. So we're getting all different types of results here. You'll notice that I do have the option to filter this by a specific type of research, or I'm sorry, type of resource. But when I find something that I want, all I have to do is just drag and drop this right into my list. So it's very simple to see what's available through the library collection and also include those resources in the course. I can also filter this to open access. So if you do have professors who are excited about open access, or if this is something that you're promoting heavily on your campus, it's very easy to find those open access resources as well. And again, I can just drag and drop these into my reading list. There are also, sometimes I can talk and type at the same time, but I want to point out that there are also OER in the index, in the Libris index. We have a couple of providers for OER content. So these are things that can be discovered alongside of all of your other resources. We can see here this example coming from OpenSUNY, and it's the exact same process. I can just drag and drop this into my reading list. So with Leganto, it's very easy for faculty to see what's available for your library collection and also to put those resources into their courses. but there's a lot more flexibility involved. If I find something that is not available through the library, or perhaps I wasn't starting in the library search, I can also include those resources in my list. I have a couple of examples here that I can show you. If I am just out and about and doing my own research and I stumble upon something that I want to include in my course, I can click on this Cite It tool here to bring it into my reading list. You can see it brings in all of the citation information, but it also checks against the library collection. So this happens to be one that I found through Google Scholar, but I can see here that this is something that will be free to my students if I choose to use it in my course. I can specify where I'm going to put it, and I can also put it into my general collection, and this is just a place to gather together resources that I might want to use down the line. As I was kind of mentioning early on, with the move to OER or maybe the move to a textbook replacement, it can sometimes be a long list of resources that replace a textbook. And so Leganto can help faculty organize those resources and gather them together from all of those different sources. So far, I think I've only included things that are available through the library, but this can certainly include resources that aren't available through the library. Here we have something from Open Textbook Library, and I can bring this into my list as well. In this case, obviously, there isn't the flag that this is held by the library collection, but we are bringing in the metadata about it, and in this case, also the Creative Commons licensing information, so that while this is sitting in my reading list, me as the instructor, or I as the instructor, and also my students will know what they're allowed to do with this particular resource. And then you can use the Cite It tool to bring in other resources that are freely accessible to students, such as TED Talks, websites, blog posts, any type of resource that the instructor wants to include in the course, you can very easily add into a Leganto list. You can also have several people who are working on a reading list together. We can see that on the list that we're working on here. There are several different collaborators who are working on the list. My alter ego is working on this twice, it looks like. I have several different accounts in our fake university. So you can see that there are several people working on this list. This could be, the library as a collaborator. It could be several different faculty members or teaching faculty who are working together. It could be TA. It could be instructional designers. This could just be somebody who is in my department that I would like to, have take a look at this list and maybe suggest some resources for me. I think what we've seen is that with the move to OER, a lot of professors are working more collaboratively to see what other professors are using in their courses, what other resources are trusted resources or have worked well in the classroom. So we do see that collaboration, growing more and more as things are changing in higher ed in general. We can also see here suggestions. I can, as my collaborators can all add resources to this list, but they can also suggest resources. So the library can be, a real partner here, either adding resources directly to a list or finding things that replace more expensive course content. We have had some schools with some success with this. One of our schools had a course in the business department that used a textbook that many of the students didn't actually purchase because of the cost. So he really wanted to replace that textbook, but he found that doing so, was a pretty significant undertaking, as I'm sure you're well aware. His entire course was structured around the structure of the textbook, and he didn't want to write his own OER that would align with that structure, but also switching to a different book meant that he would be restructuring the class. So in this situation, the library and the professor worked very closely together. The library went in and built a reading list that had, or a blank reading list that had the sections of the list aligned with the chapters of the textbook. So it still followed the order of the course, but at the same time, and then the librarian went in and was able to drag and drop resources coming primarily from the library ebook collection that aligned with the different topics associated with the course and with the textbook that he had been using. So the library was kind of the first one building the list. And then from there, the professor could go in and adjust this reading list, move these things around. That type of thing is very easy to do. If this isn't quite what I want it to be, I can easily just drag these resources around, put them in a different place, make changes to any of these, add new ones, or remove them. So it's a great way to work in partnership with other people within the institution. If I want to include this suggestion in my course, all I have to do is just drag and drop this right into my list here, and I can just pop that one in. I should also mention that even though I'm starting in Canvas here, the library can also log into Leganto. You don't have to have access to Canvas in order to be able to suggest resources for a list or add resources to a list. The library is really always considered a partner in terms of gathering together these course materials or making suggestions for additional course materials. I want to show you what this looks like from the student perspective. I was just checking the chat to make sure there weren't any questions. I want to show you though what this looks like from the student perspective. I'm going to log out of my account here as the professor and log in instead as a student. The class that I had been showing you before isn't published yet, so we'll take a look at a different class. It's a very similar experience from the student side. Here I can see my resource list, and then this will open up the Leganto list for this specific course. So here as a student, I can see all of the resources that make up this particular list. It looks very similar to what we saw from the instructor side, but this is now looking at a list that's finished from the student perspective. I can see, very easily all of these different resources. We can look at these in more detail as well. Here's an item that's available physically from the library, and I can see exactly where that item is at the library and also that it's currently available. We're pulling in real-time availability, so if this item was checked out, we would know that information as well. The top one here is a chapter that's available electronically through the library subscriptions, and I have a link to access that directly. Here is a video from TED Talk with a link to access it directly. Here's a book chapter from Open Textbook Library, and in this case, I have the option to download this item or view it online. There's some other nice features here that really do help contribute to student engagement. So things like due dates that we can easily see, tags to let me know which readings are required readings or which readings are optional readings, which readings I need to make sure I complete before I go to class. We can also see the note here from my professor. The note can be a way to just give students extra instructions or extra information about a particular resource. In this case, it's actually about accessing this resource, but this could also be things to pay attention to, things to focus on, things to point students toward. This can really help students feel like they are accomplishing the things that they're supposed to in their course. So from the student perspective, we want to make sure that even though faculty are pulling resources from all of those different places, some of them coming from the library, some of them are OER, some of them are otherwise available online, students have a consistent experience. They see a uniform list here with all of those different resources. They don't need to go out to another page or a platform in order to search for these resources. We want to make sure that students can access these materials for their courses, in obviously the most cost-efficient way possible, and that they can, be successful in their course. I'm going to pause there. Bob, has there been any?
Yes, thank you, Jessie. There are a couple of questions, so I think I can merge a couple of these into a smaller number. basically, for colleges that are just starting out with OER, what's your top advice for libraries wanting to take the lead and supporting faculty and instructional designers? What's the top few things you would advise?
I'm glad that somebody asked that because I actually meant to summarize with that, so I appreciate that. I have worked with a lot of libraries asking them about the things that they're doing and what that process has been like for them. I think the number one thing is to start with education. Of course, at first this is your own education, but also thinking about educating your faculty. From here, I would say take a look at some of the LibGuides that other schools have created, especially schools that are doing more with affordable learning or OER, the schools that you maybe look up to from this perspective. Reach out to the people who created those LibGuides and see how they got started. I'm sure this won't be a big surprise to you, but in my experience, librarians that are involved in OER tend to be very happy to share. This, of course, is the nature of OER, but also of libraries in general. And so, I've found that people are very open to talking about their experiences, to the things that have worked well and the things that haven't worked, and even to sharing, content of their LibGuides as well. So I would say, that's the starting point is educate yourself on OER using resources that other libraries have already created. I think that's a great place to start. Build your own content, whether that's a LibGuide or a website or something else that you can use to talk to your faculty. Once you have those facts, the facts that are most powerful to you, I think that having a personal connection with this is a really great resource. That's why I shared those numbers with you from the Cengage study. Those are numbers that stand out to me personally about the cost of course materials. So find some messaging that you believe in and then start talking to faculty. Not everybody on your campus will be ready. Some people will be, this might be totally new, they might be completely uninterested, but that's okay because you will definitely find people who are interested. And you'll probably also find some people who are already doing this and can share their experiences with you and kind of help you build this momentum on your campus.
Thank you. Two other questions if we have time. One is essentially, how do I paraphrase this? What is it? Is it the library that gets involved with creating these reading lists, or is it still the faculty or instructional designers, or is it a team? How does it actually work in practice? Because, yeah, how does it work in practice?
In real life, it can work in any of those ways. I think, in the past, faculty have really had full ownership of the materials that they teach in their courses, or if it's not, faculty, it's teaching and learning. So this is an area where the library has, in many places, not been as involved. That's obviously different at some schools. Some libraries do have very close relationships with faculty and are already suggesting resources that faculty can use in their courses. So Leganto supports anything along this spectrum. It can be the faculty member or the teaching faculty who are building this course. It can be, me as the instructor, working with an instructional designer to build this list. The library can also be the one building the list. We see that, we do see that happening, and I think I said this, we see this happening especially in the move to OER, where faculty maybe are less confident in what resources are out there or which resources might be appropriate for their courses. In this case, the library is sometimes more heavily involved in adding resources to a list or suggesting resources to a list. So this can be, just the instructor working by themselves. It can be, the instructor in partnership with other people, or it can be the library who's the one building the list. And in that case, it would appear to the students still embedded inside the learning management system. We see that happening in a lot of cases where it is primarily, articles coming from the library collections or physical reserves with the library collection.
Thank you. Two very quick questions. Which other learning management systems has Leganto been used with in the past?
We support LTI, so any learning management system that uses LTI is fine. We have customers who are using Leganto, Blackboard, Moodle, D2L. We're testing with It's Learning right now, and it's going well. I'm not sure if I've forgotten any, but we haven't had any trouble working with different learning management systems.
And I guess from my screen, Canvas works.
Oh yes, and Canvas, of course.
Yeah, yeah. Final question, actually, comment from me. Oh, yeah. I know in one of the next webinars, Jessie, you're going to cover analytics. Can you explain in 30 seconds flat why analytics is important and who it's important to in the effective use of library resources and OER and so on?
You're giving me 30 minutes. Analytics is my favorite thing to talk about, so I'm not sure if I can do it, or 30 seconds. We do have analytics, which of course is, one of the major tools that the library and also the instructor can use to make sure that they are supporting what is needed and what's being used in the classroom. So from the instructor side, I can see how my students are engaging with these different resources in my course. That includes which resources are they using, how many students in my class are actually clicking through to the content of these resources. Instructors have access to this information while the course is still going on, so they can make sure that students are actually learning the materials that they should be learning for the course. And then they also can see the analytics after the course is over. So as I'm thinking about redesigning my course, maybe that was my first year, using some of these resources, I can identify which items are potential candidates for replacement based on student engagement. On the library side, the library can also see usage, including how library resources are being used in courses, but also the usage of things that aren't coming from the library collection, such as OER or uploaded files or any other type of resource that might be used in the course.
Thank you, Jessie. And with that, I'd like to wrap up today's webinar. Thank you very much for joining. Bye-bye.